Hi everybody, and welcome to Book Talk. I'm Susan Gray, your host, and today we're talking with Melinda Rainey Thompson about her new book, The Swag Life. Melinda, we are so glad you're here.
Thank you. I'm very excited.
Good. Now, tell everybody what SWAG means.
It's an acronym, obviously, and it started with the first book, Southern Women Aging Gracefully. And the title came actually in the middle of a pool of a bunch of women and little children trying to decide what kind of writing we wanted to do, what I was interested in, and the humor came out. We titled it that because that's what I am. You know, we're all aging. The parade is going in one direction for all of us.
I've heard that.
People always say, well, how old are you? I'm 44. People always say, well, you know, that's not middle-aged. And so if you're 50 and you're middle-aged, so you're planning to live to be 100 or 120. It's an interesting view of aging we all have, but I think it's a life philosophy.
Yeah.
And it's how we're all walking that parade route, but it's how we walk that route that I think in the end really matters. And that's what I'm trying to capture in these books. There's that little moment of magic that is sandwiched somewhere in that daily grind.
Right, and the quote from the book was so good about that. And in fact, I just want to read that. It says, this is about the swag life. What I'm trying to capture in the swag life is the exalted moments of heaven sandwiched right in the minutia of the daily grind.
We all have that. We all have that. And we forget the little joys because you're so wound up in getting through the day. And I think that's common to all of us, which is what's given the book a very universal appeal. And I think it's what people all come to my book signings and say the same thing. You're writing about my life. And I always say, yeah, I am.
Right.
It's a lot like being a stenographer. I don't think that this work is particular to me. I think there are 100 women who would write it if they had the time and the patience and the courage to tell the truth.
I found that as I was reading it, and I was just so glad because it always makes you feel good to feel understood.
Oh, nothing like self-validation.
Exactly.
Makes my day.
Exactly. Now, did I get it right that you started in 1998 writing?
Well, yeah, I think it was like August of 99 or so, and I had 3 children in 5.5 years.
Are you listening to this, future women writers who are too busy to write?
I thought I was losing my mind. I'd always done work. I was an English professor, small liberal arts college, till my kids were born.
English professor.
English teacher. I prefer that, actually.
Do you?
Teach writing, yeah.
Okay.
But the only writing I'd done was very academic kind of things. And I don't have the talent for the great American novel. I don't think I'm Harper Lee. But humor was fast and came really quickly, and I started writing this newsletter out of my house. It was really, I'd say, pre-blog. At least in Alabama, nobody was doing a blog in 99.
Right.
And so I mailed it. It was like 2 pages front and back folded. I'd bribe my kids. I'll give you a smoothie if you stamp 100.
Oh, it's a family enterprise. At that moment, it turned family.
Spread out.
Perfect.
And we mailed it, but it grew because this is the South, and everybody's got a mom, sister, aunt, roommate, and so it grew until it was 5,000 people. It was 38 states. It was just ridiculous. It really overgrown. And I wasn't trying to start a magazine or anything, so then I thought, okay, maybe I could sell this to a publisher. Maybe somebody would buy this.
So at what point did you know you had enough?
About 5 years. And I really didn't use the columns. It's not just a collection of columns in that first book.
I'm so glad you said that because I was going to talk about that in a minute.
No, they don't all work together to make that happen.
No.
But some of them did. And it came together, but I knew that I could approach a publisher and say, I have 5,000 people that really want this book.
5,000? That's really significant.
And it worked. And the first book came out just a year ago, which was great. And it was a bestseller in the South for 18 straight weeks. And so there was
honorable mention by Southern Living.
Yes, it was
and really fun. Southern Independent Booksellers. Okay, yeah.
It's like the indies. Each city, you got at least one or two.
That's where all the greats start.
Yeah, well, they read and they can point to good selections, and so it grew, and there was a market for that, and we've missed a lot of that in Southern Lit. I think we've got the eccentrics represented. We've got the Gothican, and we've got the Magnolias, and we've got the sharecropper in. Civil rights is represented. All those things that I can't represent because I didn't live that.
Right.
But the average person, the 21st century woman, just living a regular life, did not have a voice. And now I really know that because I've traveled thousands of miles through the South, and they come and meet me and say, that chapter was about me. I'm like, no, that chapter was about me. It's okay. Because it is nonfiction. It's my life.
Right.
This is the South. We know how to tell a story.
Oh,
so
boy.
There's hyperbole. There's some great exaggeration, but it's not a tall tale. It really is. And I always say the stranger it is,
the more actually factual it is.
That is so true, because you just can't make it up, girl.
You can't make it up.
You can't make it up, as wild and unexpected as life truly is, and people truly are.
There is a chapter in this new book, in the Swag Life, called Mailing Mama. And it happened just like I recorded it. You know, someone mailing the cremated remains of her mother.
Yeah.
Well, we all took a step back,
Okay.
gasp in line.
A lot of trust in the post office girl,
Yeah.
or whoever that was.
They just wasn't very good manners, like pistachio nuts just tossed up on the counter. That would not go for my family. No. Mom would not handle that well.
Okay, let's talk for a second about the format, because there are writers that watch, and I love that they get tidbits to help encourage them and show them shortcuts and easier ways. So the whole idea, would you call these a collection of essays?
That's a really good question. And in the industry, in the publishing industry, that's what they are. They're essays. I teach writing.
Because
and
that
that's what they
sounds
are.
boring, but I'm going to tell you this. They are not boring.
Good.
You are
That's what I
going
like to
to
hear.
love this.
That's what I like to hear.
But, I mean, so that's an industry tool.
Because apparently humor sells, but you know, people aren't lining up for Jonathan Swift essays. So it's not that kind of essay. You can skip around in this book. You don't have to
Which
read book
people
one
love
before book
that.
two.
You can go straight to the last chapter, which
You
for some
can.
of you I'm going to recommend, but I'll be talking about that later.
Yes, you can pick it up and put it down.
Yeah.
It's a, you know, waiting in line at the doctor's office. It's that kind of book. For writers, I would say two things. When you write about light things in life, like children's literature or like humor, as I'm doing, it's no excuse for bad writing.
Yeah.
So the craftsmanship still has to be there. It has to be artfully and beautifully written, regardless of its length or its complexity or its
Exactly.
level of topic. You know, and
Because
humor.
is a cake mixed the same as a baked cake?
Yeah.
Probably not. But it's a great start.
Sure, but the attention to the detail has got to be there. I always say pay attention. If I gave, it's like the Nike Just Do It ad.
Right.
If I gave one piece of advice, I believe life is in the details. Now, I could be examining the lichen and the moss at the foot of the tree as the forest burns around me. I'm one of those detail people, but
I got that in the
attention.
section about writing, which I'm so glad you put that in there. There were so many fun things in the writing section. There were 10 things I love about writing,
Yes.
and 10 things I hate, because people who haven't written cannot imagine that there's anything to hate about writing.
you have to be very patient over a long period of time and very self-disciplined to write and to make
No
it.
instant gratification
No,
there,
there's not.
unless you're at the typewriter enjoying your own writing.
And
Which,
I'm well trained for that as a mom. There's no instant gratification. It's a 40-year investment,
Right.
long term, to see if those kids turn out. So
right.
writing is a lot the same way.
Well, so the thing of it is that if you're writing short-term things, which I always love a short-term project because it's very satisfying, and before you know it, you have a collection of things that are probably publishable. So if you've been doing that and you think, I could never write a book, don't think of it like that.
There's a book in everyone, I think. It doesn't mean they'll all make it onto the
Doesn't
shelf.
mean they, yeah, right.
But it's there, and it's the story that's waiting to be told that's the interesting thing. And you have to be willing to go where the writing takes you, and I'm kind of a control freak, so I don't like that.
We don't have that in the South. Are you sure?
I'm pretty sure it's strong on that XX chromosome. It's strong matriarchs. We like to think of it as strong matriarchs
you
rather than
go.
bossy, which is, what I am.
Redefine. When everything else fails, just redefine.
It's a little euphemistic way of looking at it.
Right.
You can sit down and think you're writing about this great wedding reception and end up writing about the crab dip. That happens, and you got to be willing to go where it goes. And that's why, in fact, the Swag Life I started before my first book.
No way.
Yeah.
Well, how did the other one get before this?
Well, it just didn't go where I thought it was going. So I ended up putting it aside and going with the other book. And it came together much more easily. And sometimes, chapters have to come together to make a whole book. You can't just staple things together,
Right.
And when they do, you can feel it. It's a scalp tingling kind of thing.
The
It all comes
process
together.
is so fascinating because of just what you just said. You don't know that you're writing your second book first, and that somewhere along the line.
It happens.
So be open to whichever direction it goes, while being meticulous on your editing, I would say.
Yes, and people have to be willing to revise and work hard at it a long
and
time.
something that was wonderful to me was said by a famous movie star, because I'm going to be humble, I won't tell you who it was. But anyway, she said, you can't let anything be too precious, because if you do, if you love it more than editors and readers, you're already gone.
You can't take your writing personally, and I already had a very professional view of writing because I taught writing. So you can't be attached to those sentences. You're crafting something, and you have to do what works best, not what you like best.
In the years before you wrote, did you think, why couldn't I have been a writer?
You know, I didn't. Writing always came easily to me. Math, I'm like a subspecies in math, you know, and my whole household budget is 3-digit subtraction, so how hard could it be?
Right.
But, you know, I routinely make the children figure out the tip in a restaurant, not even embarrassed about it, you know. So writing came easily. Yeah. What am I paying my taxes for? Writing came quickly and easily to me, and it was cheaper than therapy, which is how I started doing it with children. It's really cheaper. And for me, it was a way of connecting with girlfriends. And I really like to think that the only thing that separates us is geography and accents. I think worldwide.
Right.
And I find that really a good way to get up in the morning. I think that's that's my story.
No, that's good. And we're going to talk about the suburban cliche in just a minute, which was such a great way to start, but I was so surprised by that. The book has been described as a hit with Southern women, the men who love them, and girl, I was going to put the men that loved them, and I went, oh my gosh, I can't put that in there. I've got to edit really carefully. And the women who want to be them. And until I read that, I never thought that there was a possibility that somewhere women would want to be like Southern women. But you know what? That idea just started to bloom in me.
There's a fascination with the Southern genre of literature and women in general.
Well, we retain something that is vanishing elsewhere.
I think so.
That
There
it's
is a
slow
cultural
to leave here.
cohesiveness.
Thank God.
It is. People really do care about good manners, and it's not that our children are perfectly mannered all the time, but they get fussed at when they're not.
That's right.
We're still working at that, and still working at that real strong family center, and a lot of things. It's not unique to the South. But there are some
there are women
differences
everywhere that love their families and enjoy being a woman, but there was something about that I wish I could put my finger on it, but I knew it was true when I read it.
There's a little flavor. It's my angle. I always say, you know, this could have been written in Wisconsin, but I couldn't write it from the Wisconsin point of view. I don't know that.
Right.
I know this point of view.
How fun.
And so, you know, it's like the red lipstick. It's not polite to comment on. It's cultural, you know, in 21st century America.
That's
right. Part of my culture.
Yeah.
Best-selling lipstick of all time, you know, been out since 1952.
Exactly.
So yeah, there are cultural things that are different, but that's really a very superficial thing. I think at a substantive level, that's why women all over the country read, and men, and I know they do because they email me and write me, or there could be a little freak show spying going on. It is a reality show down here.
I just tell you that you had me at Freak Show. Oh my God. The preface of this thing, I took so much out of it to talk about because even before the book started, the preface was so fun. And I went, Freak Show spying, I love that girl.
I'm pretty humble.
So great.
Pretty humble.
All right, well that leads me into this. We're going to go back to the humor category. It is a humorous book.
Yes.
And I was reading along, enjoying myself, and wondering to myself, do you ever laugh out loud when you're typing your stuff? Because I know I would if I had just typed that.
Well, it's like tattling. There's a lot of that tattling satisfaction. That's what it's the adult version of tattling.
Yeah.
Someone really irritates you, and you can go home and whip out a little essay,
right?
And get that same little giggly satisfaction of things you might not be able to say out loud.
I'm not kidding. I just could picture.
Perspective.
Right.
You know, it's just for fun. This humor is only at my expense, with very rare exceptions. I have the snoring husband. He does appear occasionally, and my teenagers say, "I'm not in that book, am I?" You know,
they would be
only
scared.
in a general sense, you know, in a very general, everyone in the world is part of everything, the circle of life kind of thing.
That's so funny.
But yeah, in general, they don't think it's funny. You know, they flip through and they get that kind of.
They will. They will look back one day and go, my mother was a comic genius.
Well, you know, Lucille Ball, I think about this all the time, 60 years ago, was on television. She makes my children laugh today. I think that's an incredible thing. It's not dependent on technology. There are odd little things that happen. The telephones are weird on I Love Lucy and all that. But it still makes them laugh out loud. And I consciously crafted these books so that they would be evergreen. I want them to be funny in 5 years. They're not political. They're not global warming. They're not going to raise your social consciousness.
Exactly.
And they're not time sensitive in any of those senses. They're not. They're going to make you
funny.
skinnier, not younger looking, none of that. But they're guilt-free, non-fattening fun.
Oh, you're not kidding.
And, you know, that's not a sin.
That's not. So even though most of it's really funny, I'm reading along and I get to the chapter called The Invisible Woman.
Yeah.
And I'm reading along because I really was like, what could that be about?
Go in with it.
I know. And when I got there, I was so moved. Do you have anything you'd like to say about that? Because I just loved it so much. I think I may have cried on that.
Oh, it's okay.
Or I wanted to.
It was a good cry.
Yeah.
It was a good cry.
It was a happy and gratifying, wonderful thing.
There are some, what I call kind of sweet, there are a few things that are kind of sweet, and they go against my grain because I'm not a crybaby.
I'm sorry, you hit it beautifully on that.
But there are invisible women, or the people in our society that we talk about, that everybody's got one in a family, in a little community, in a circle of friends, and they do all the background work, and they're not really stars, and they don't really stand out, but when something happens to those invisible women and they're out of your life, you really miss them and you notice them. And in the South in particular, I think we have a lot of those. I think our men get written about and celebrated a lot more in the South. I think there
It's
are a
just
lot
in the
of,
writers especially,
Yes,
authors
that's-
especially.
But in women, I think there are a lot of unsung voices and unspoken words, and giving a voice to some of that demographic to me has been an absolute incredible blessing. I have really liked that.
I can understand that.
An interviewer once asked me in a kind of disapproving voice, you're like the sick person book, aren't you? And I said, yep.
What?
It's a book. I'm the G-rated humor.
Yeah.
So I'm the gift closet book.
Okay.
Which I'm fine with
Whatever.
that. And
Get
the sick
some for your
person
friends.
book, I have become, and actually my most rewarding moment as a writer came as one of those things. And I was still doing the newsletter. I was working on the first book, and I was walking my kids to school. And we got to the corner of this stop sign, and there were two people on the corner talking about swag. And I couldn't decide, now I'm kind of used to it. I've walked into a lobby or walked onto a beach and there's somebody reading your book. As long as they're laughing, I'm fine. But I didn't quite know what I wanted to do about it, how I wanted to handle it. Do you speak up and say, I'm right here, don't say anything terrible?
Well, that's a toss-up.
It was kind of a close call. And one had a headscarf, and she'd clearly had some very heavy-duty cancer treatments going on. And she told the lady that she saved it to read during her cancer treatments.
Oh, wow.
So that 5 minutes of distraction for that woman was worth it. If I never sold a book, if I never made a dime, I made a difference. I made a difference in that person's life. And I'm a
That's
firm,
the essence.
It is. It's
really.
we're not going to be Bill and Melinda Gates.
Right.
We're not going to all cure malaria or Oprah or change the world, but we'll all do these little things that together change. And this is my little thing.
Oh, it's huge. It's wonderful.
So that's how the Invisible Women kind of thing came to be.
Oh, you're just going to love that so much because you're going to laugh up until you get that. But what's so cool about what you just said is that Invisible Woman is sort of in the first part of the book, and the way it ends up with that last chapter and the way that you showed the very things you were just talking about that you don't know about people, men or women, and then suddenly these things are exposed to you and you go, if I'd only known, I would have valued them so much more. And so I love that it sort of puts the rest of the story in the middle.
It's supposed to bring that. I'm glad you appreciated that coming full circle. Good.
Absolutely. It was so cool. You couldn't have planned that, I don't think. Did you get to choose the order of these, by the way?
Oh, yes. They're all very crafted. Yeah, you do. I mean, you get lots of editing help, and my publisher, John F. Blair in North Carolina, was fabulous.
I saw that you loved them.
I love them. And they're not all that like that,
I know. So I was like,
they've been
wow,
divine. And there's nothing like having a first book that's successful to give you a lot of literary license with that second.
Exactly.
So I had a lot of freedom, and that was really fun because you can see the whole in your mind and then work to get there.
Right. Okay, now we've just got to talk more about the book because I want people. But I have to tell them about Conversations with Dead People. So you don't know what you're going to get on that either. But here's the thing. It came right after Invisible Woman, so I was already kind of, oh, that's so wonderful. And then there's this little short thing about Conversations with Dead People. And you said that grief is, in fact, frustrated love.
I think it is.
Did you think that up?
I'm sure there's no original thought in the planet, but yeah.
I don't care. I've never heard that before, and I sort of...
Love doesn't end, just because of the person is gone. Love doesn't end.
Exactly.
And I think that's a great affirming thing of the everlasting nature of eternity, however you want to view it.
Exactly.
That no matter what happens organically, that feeling and that thought's still there. And people do, as I talk about in that chapter, find themselves thinking aloud or speaking aloud to somebody who's long dead, not because they're crazy, but because you just want to tell them about it.
Well, let me tell you another application that before I go on and talk about some other things that were just hysterical. But while I was reading, when I read that, what occurred to me is there are other kinds of losses. Grief comes from different sources, and I'm not going to explore that right now because I'm sort of up here. I don't want to get
relationships.
But when I read that, grief is the thing that people do not want to feel. They do not like the feeling of dependence, and they do not want to feel grief, even when it's appropriate. But that made me go, grief is so precious. So I had a complete 180 on grief.
Good.
And I just
I'm not
wanted
a therapist, but good.
I don't care. It works for me, and I just wanted to thank you for that because that was such a beautiful sentiment.
nice.
But then we go on to, and so I'm going through the preface, and I'm
Okay.
trying. You said if the reader has not read my first book, you need to go out and buy it right now. How come?
Well, I can't, Southern women are a deep, deep writing well. Unlimited sources of material. People have asked me all week, are you writing a third book? I'm fighting it. I'm fighting it hard. I have no time for that. but yeah, there's so much material, and I never know where it's going to come from. And it's just regular life. There could be from here.
Yeah, it is.
Leaving today, something can happen that triggers something, that sets something off. So it's unlimited material. But that's a different. You don't have to read one before the other. It doesn't matter. They're just different topically.
Yeah.
But I do think that has a little different decades feel to it. Just like painters.
Right.
And you can see their paintings from one decade to another.
You've evolved.
I think that's
As a
I don't know.
Southern
I'm not getting any sweeter, so I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. But yeah, I think people's writing changes just like artwork or anything else.
Right. Oh my goodness. Okay, well then, I love that you have 2 sons.
I do.
One of them's name is Warner.
Yes.
If that's not Southern,
They're all named after long dead family people.
I don't
6
get
feet
that.
under. Yeah.
Okay, see now now I just
Right.
proved it. And, but you've got a daughter who,
Yes.
when she heard you were writing book number 2,
Yes, very
said
suspicious.
to you something about mother sequels are never as good as the first
She's
one.
very savvy.
And how old is she?
She is almost 9. Lily Gray, named after both great-grandmothers, cement the sides. The woman she's named after was supposedly so much fun. And I thought every time, wouldn't you love to be named after something that's the
Absolutely.
first thing people think about?
Well, you got to
She was
think,
so fun.
when they ask you, why'd you name me that, Mom?
Yeah,
Honey, you
got a good
better have
answer.
something good,
And it
something that's
engraves
going to
well.
bless them.
Lily Gray engraves and monograms beautifully, which is very important.
She did a great job.
She did. She said, they're never as good. And she said it in that I'm going to love you anyway because you're my mama voice. But in that,
And
I
she's
feel
gracious,
sorry for
too.
you. Yeah, but she'll be checking my Amazon numbers. She'll be checking to make sure the sales are on par. But I wanted to know too, just like anything else. I worked really hard on this, and I actually like book 2 better than book 1. But I don't know if I've only written 2.
Right.
Maybe you always like what's closest, what you've been working on recently.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
Well, if you didn't, I would think it wouldn't come out in the book. I think the writer needs to enjoy what they're doing so that the reader can sort of take that.
You can feel it if you're done.
Absolutely.
But I didn't write this in a year, and there will not be another one next year. It'll be a while because, like I said, I
'Cause
started this
just
one before
knew
the
you
first
already
one.
had one going.
Well, I'm fighting it. I've got some little inclinations going. And
It's all right. Just
I'm fighting it.
flow with it, girl.
2 years would be a natural thing, but my husband is an appellate court judge, and so he runs for re-election statewide every 6 years. And so next year would be a re-election year, and my publisher in North Carolina said, well, so we'll have it for then. And I said, no, he has the health insurance. I don't think that's going to work out. And they were like, well, that's his job, right? What? And I'm like, oh, you don't understand the politics of the
How
South.
blessed is your husband to have you as a wife when he's a candidate for whatever?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, I know. That's amazing. It's a likability.
I'm pretty curious. This
Likability
really
is
doesn't
just-
offend. That's why it's been popular with all generations. It's been very, but I do have, I could have a lot to say about politics
Girl,
if I
that's
ever
just,
did.
no, I wasn't even thinking about that. I was just thinking about presence and being fun and enjoyable. All right, let me get on here. Let's see. If the book itself starts out with a chapter called The Suburban Cliche.
Yes.
That's kind of highbrow. What do you mean?
Well, it's again, ordinary life. I'm not the real exciting urban mid-city dweller that has a flat above some interesting Chinese takeaway. And I'm not in the rural part of the South. I'm where most of the South now lives.
Right.
In ordinary everyday life, where somebody drives into work and somebody does regular things. And I think there's a lot of suburban profiling that goes on. I think they look at me and see swing voters, soccer mom.
Suburban profiling.
Absolutely.
A couple of your names for stereotyping. Hang on, let me look. Soundbite. Social soundbite.
shortcut. It is a shortcut.
Social shortcut.
It is.
I just thought, oh my goodness, that's such a great way to put it.
It's true.
But it's a dreadful thing to do.
We can
it's
have
a dreadful.
the stereotyping generalizations are only bad when they're applied to us personally. Then they're bad. They're terrible,
Right.
But they also exist, and I take them with a sense of humor for a reason. We came up with, the mom stereotype because moms do worry about everything, whether it's
Right.
baldness or the date to the prom or whether
Right.
your child's going to get run over by a car or drive drunk.
You
But
do
that's
worry
how
about the big
moms-
ones became invisible. So watch
Right?
out. Watch out.
That's a good point. And it's an edgy thing, but I think being aware of something and even talking about it with a little humor makes us, check that for just a second.
Just think for a second.
Yeah.
Okay, you wrote 10 things I love about writing, 10 things I hate. Can you remember one or the other? One from each one.
Well, yeah. One thing I love about writing is that you get to meet the people that you're really writing for. And I like that part.
That's a validation.
And I didn't think I would. And it's a little nerve-wracking the first times because there's always a crazy person at a book signing.
Oh, we're getting there.
You're always at
we're
least
getting
one.
there.
But really they're harmless.
Yeah.
They're really just, they're kind of wanting the interaction, so I put them to work, help me unpack the book, let's do this over here. And that became a good thing that I thought was going to be a bad thing.
You talk about thinking on your feet. You Southern women can do that really well.
They do that.
I need the encouragement and the help. Right. Canned expressions were particularly helpful to me because the only one I know is oh.
Yeah.
And then that's where I'm through then.
With that? Or, yeah.
That's okay.
Lots of those.
Yeah. And then something you hate about writing.
I hate that I can't help people with their book projects, and I think it's the teacher in me.
That was exactly the one I wanted you to talk about.
It is good. It is good. People want that, but I'm not a publisher. I'm just a writer.
Let me put this in capsule form for the listener. If you're going to a book signing and you have a book idea, under no circumstances do you ever say anything to the author about it, because then you've done one of those faux pas things that no one knows how to get out of. She's not going to publish it for you, even though she wants to.
Well, sometimes we discuss it. I've heard some good pitches. I really have. I've heard some great ideas.
It's not that
but
they're
there's nothing
not.
I can do to really help them along
Let's
with that.
just say it's an inappropriate outlet. That's all I'm saying. There are appropriate ones, but they're inappropriate too. Okay, now I got to get to the last chapter because the last chapter I almost fell out of my chair laughing.
Okay, good sign.
You talked about what would you call them? Different. She's a little different.
Yeah. In the South,
People say that about me, but I know they mean differently than what you're saying.
Or she's special. Do you mean like special as in Special
No,
Olympics, or do you mean special as in
exactly
delightful and wonderful, or special as in
but
screwless?
that's the way you do it. So
Sandwich
you're not
short of a
really
picnic.
sure.
Picnic.
Just if you know, you know, and if you don't, they are specialty. Okay.
Well, it can be confusing in the South. Like we say she's a mess. When we say she's a mess, we really love her.
I know.
But it doesn't sound that way.
No.
You have to be able to translate compliments and insults. And
Oh my gosh. Well, the last chapter, let me just wrap it up quickly. It's on people that are sort of a little crazy. And I just can't believe they let you put that in, but I'm so grateful that they did. Because the experiences you write about there are going to hit everybody. You think you're the only one they come to? Can I just tell you that I'm the Houdini of getting out of that? Okay, on that note, we're running out of time, and so I'm going to have to wrap it up. Melinda, thank you so much for a delightful, funny, wonderful book. We look forward to your next one.
Thank you so much. A pleasure.
Oh, and also there's a book club guide in the back of this if you want to do this. I think it'd be a great book to do. If you're not in a book club, you can call your local library, because you can either get in one or start one. And if you don't want to do that, you can always tune into Book Talk. We'll see you next time on Book Talk.
You're watching the Library Channel, a broadcast service of the Memphis Public Libraries and the City of Memphis.